Hi everyone, welcome to this session of Hot Guys Making Out, which, hopefully you found this because you're looking for role-playing games. If not, you may be disappointed. This is a game by Ben Lehman, a romance game exploring the budding romance between the young Gonsalvo, who is the ward of Honore, a former nobleman, set in the backdrop of the Spanish Civil War. This game is being run as part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which, if you're watching this and aren't aware of it, is an online role-playing community based at www.gauntlet-rpg.com or games.com. The address will be in the description anyway. That's sort of we run a lot of games like this, both one-offs like the game I'm running this evening, and longer series as well. You can find out more at the website. There's a Slack you can join, and a Patreon, and you can watch more videos like this. So my name's David. I live in Sheffield in the UK. The game we're running this evening is a GM-less game, so I'll be sort of facilitating and teaching it, but we'll all be playing. If the other two of you could introduce yourselves, and then I'll explain the game and we'll begin.
Hi, my name is Sławek. I live in the Kent area of United Kingdom, and I only joined Gauntlet Hangouts quite recently, so I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm also David. I'm a Gauntletier. I'm living in Edinburgh in the UK, and looking forward to playing and discovering this game this evening.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice to meet you both. The premise of this game, as I said, is it's a romance between two characters. I'm just scrolling through to the relevant bit of the book. There is a little opening tract that I will read, and then we will I'll explain how we play. No, in fact, I'll do it the other way around. I will. So I will introduce the way this game works is there are two sort of essentially main characters, Gonsalvo and Honore. As I said, Honore is a former aristocrat. Lives in a large house in the Pyrenees in Spain. This is set during the Spanish Civil War. Gonsalvo is a young man whose parents have been killed during the Spanish Civil War, and Honore has taken him in as his ward, as he knew Gonsalvo's murdered father. The third character that we will have this evening is Maria, who is Honore's maid and personal servant. If we had a fourth player, they would be playing Olivier, the butler, and sort of general handyman around the house. He will still be sort of available as an NPC, should the need arise, but he will not be played as a character this evening. So the first thing we will do is we will choose which characters we want to play, because this game tends to play quite quickly, probably about an hour or so. So our intention is that we will probably play one game, take a short break, and then come back and play different roles, if everyone wants to do that. So the first thing is to choose which character we want to play. I will just give a quick description of each now. So there is Gonsalvo. Gonsalvo is an orphan, a shy young man who has trouble standing up for himself. He is emotional, passive, and introspective. You should play Gonsalvo if you like talking about your emotions, voicing in a monologue, and letting others take the lead. Next is Honore. Honore is the master of the house. He's a stern yet alluring former nobleman. He is passionate, active, and dashing. You should play Honore if you like taking intense direct action towards your goals. And finally, Maria is Honore's devoted maid and body servant. She is insightful, proper, and sometimes spiteful. You should play Maria if you want to be a supportive player who gives advice and helps other people out. So, does anyone have a preference to begin with? I will start out by saying I'm happy to play any of them. So, I'm more than happy to let the two of you make decisions, and I'll pick up whoever doesn't get chosen.
For me, I think I'd like to avoid playing as Gonsalvo for the first game, and then I can change perhaps. But for me, yeah, I would like to avoid Gonsalvo. So Honore or Maria for me, please.
That's fine. Dave, do you have a preference?
I'm happy to play any of them. It seems like Maria would probably be a good one for you to play as a facilitator, actually, David. So maybe I'll play Gonsalvo.
Sure thing. So, are you happy playing Honore in the first go round?
Certainly, I tend to be quite active in direct characters.
Cool.
Two choice anyway.
That should work well. And yeah, as you say, Maria works quite well as a sort of semi-GM figure anyway. So it's probably makes sense for me to play her, especially because we'll get onto this in a second. In fact, no, we'll get onto it now. In the game, there is always a threat, and I'll explain how that threat comes about in a moment. This is basically something that threatens the relationship between Honore and Gonsalvo. It could be something very, like a very literal threat, like fascist troops are advancing on the house, or it could be something a bit more ephemeral. In this case, the recommended first threat, the first time you play this game, is that Maria is jealous of Gonsalvo and is possibly going to interfere in the relationship. So yes, it's basically taking a slightly more antagonistic role, though, as we discussed in our brief chat. Oh, that's the next bit we'll get onto. Do not let me forget that. We are playing a cooperative game here. There is no winner, unsurprisingly. Rather, we all win by having a good time. So before we go any further, the important thing we have playing any games with the gauntlet, and to be honest, any games I like to play really, we are running with a couple of safety tools here tonight. The first out of the kind of gauntlet, is a gauntlet mandatory safety tool, or safety situation, I suppose, which is, so we run with an inclusive table policy, the full details of which can be found at the gauntlet homepage. Which is basically to say, we are going to treat each other as friends here. We're not going to make personal attacks, etc., against each other or create an unpleasant environment. Again, shouldn't need saying, but this is the internet, so the other thing we have is the open table policy. All this is to basically say is, if at any point you decide that you don't want to play this game anymore, you can just leave. We will not judge or recriminate. Hopefully that won't be the case. I mean, it may not even be something goes wrong in the game. It may just be, I've just had an important phone call and I've got to leave. If that happens. Life is like that. The other sort of active safety tool we'll be running with this session is the X card. So for those of you who aren't aware of it, basically the X card is essentially just a device to sort of veto or stop a scene if it goes into territory that we're not comfortable with, or even just if it's like tonally off and you just don't like where that's going to take the story, but particularly if it's something that's actually going to make you uncomfortable with it. So to indicate that you want to X card it, there's a couple of ways. I mean, you can just type an X in the chat at the side of the screen. You can like make an X sign with your hands in front of the camera, or you can just say, I want to X card that. I will, say for me, the quickest way to get my attention will be to speak, but feel free to use other ways as well. It's just with hopping between windows occasionally, I might miss something in chat or in video screen, but I will try and keep aware for it. If something gets X carded, I may just quickly ask you what we want to avoid, but I won't ask you to explain why we want to avoid it. If you've X carded it, that's it. It's over. There's no recrimination for doing that, and the same if you're the target of an X card. Don't take it as a personal attack. It's just that something is making someone else uncomfortable, and we'll deal with that. We've also had a quick chat offline about lines and veils, which things we won't deal with, or we will veil in the course of this game. But for obvious reasons, I don't discuss that live on camera. That's for us as players to have sorted that between ourselves. Okay, I think that's all the safety speak out of the way. So with that, yes, the game itself. So the way this game will be played, and I will be doing some faffing about in the background whilst I discuss this. We will play scenes, a number of scenes. Each scene will always start with Gonsalvo's player. We'll have a little discussion before each scene to discuss what we want the scene to be about, where we want it to be set, who we want there, all that sort of thing. When the scene starts, like I said, we will always start with Gonsalvo's player, and then there's an order of play which essentially goes Gonsalvo, Maria, Honore, back to Gonsalvo. We'll keep going around like that. Each player has been dealt 5 playing cards, just regular, normal playing cards. On your turn, what you will do is you'll put down a playing card. That will then let you take an action. What action you take is sort of determined by which card you play. There's a brief cheat sheet I've put up for the players in the player aid we've got. But broadly speaking, you have a normal action, which is just a thing your character can always do, and that's what happens with most cards that are played. Honore and Gonsalvo both have special restrictions on what they're able to do with their normal actions based on their character. So for Gonsalvo, on his normal action, he can describe or express his thoughts and feelings with internal monologue or with a bit of character dialogue. You cannot act successfully. So any sort of physical action or trying to achieve something you try and do will fail. You're kind of a bit inept is probably a bit harsh, but he's a struggling young man sort of thing. So tends to get into trouble. The exception to this is that if you play a heart, any heart, you can take decisive and successful action, essentially. That's it. So if you've got a heart and you play that, you can actually achieve a specific goal that you've set out to do. We will then go over to Honore. On Honore's normal actions, he can act decisively and effectively. So he can go out and do something or say something that has purpose and a point and gets things done. What he cannot do is hesitate, express his emotions, or fail. So he is very active, passionate, but emotionally locked off. And as you might expect, when Honore plays a heart, he can express his emotions or internal monologue as part of that scene, but as part of that action. But again, only when he plays a heart. For Maria's is a bit more simple. I can describe her thoughts, feelings, or actions, as well as I can describe the thoughts, feelings, and actions of a secondary character. If we have another character in the scene, I will essentially take on the role for playing that character as well. Sometimes one of our characters may not be present in the scene, but that doesn't mean that you can't still take actions off screen. We don't all have to be kind of working towards the same thing. I'll get back into that in a sec. So the next type of action is the next one I will discuss is the threat. So anytime somebody plays an ace, that will escalate the threat. That ace remains on the table. There's a little space for it we've got there. And when there are aces out, the threat can act and threaten the other characters. There's kind of a graded list of things that they can do depending on how many aces are out. So with one ace on the table, you can only sort of foreshadow coming threats. With two aces on the table, the threat has manifested and can menace a single character. With three aces on the table, the threat is openly hostile, and they can harm a character at that point or menace every character. And finally, at four aces, the threat can kill a single character or harm any other characters. This brings us on to our final action type. Well, sorry, not quite our final action type, our final card type. This is for Gonsalvo and Honore, this is the moment of passion. So for Gonsalvo, jacks trigger his moment of passion. When Gonsalvo plays a jack, you can act without restriction to increase the emotional intimacy between you and Honore. So this is what this means is essentially, as I said, I'll go into the specifics of how an action looks in a second. But for most actions, they are very short descriptions. They're not really interactive between other players. The way that you should think of this is kind of like a panel in a comic or a couple of lines in a novel. It's something fairly short, fairly succinct, that just encapsulate a specific action, a specific thought or description about their emotional state, depending on who you're playing and what you're doing. In the moment of passion, this specifically gives Honore and Gonsalvo the opportunity to have a long and meaningful interaction, conversation, possibly more, depending on exactly the situation. And as I said, with Gonsalvo, his moment of passion increases the emotional intimacy of their relationship. So they might have a discussion about how they're getting on as a well, not as a couple, but as people. Each time you play a jack, you have to have a form of emotional intimacy that you've never had before. Defined fairly loosely, but that's what Gonsalvo does when he plays a jack, and that's a jack of any suit. It doesn't matter at that point whether it's a heart or not, because it gives you the fact it's a jack kind of overrides that. Honore, his moment of passion is a king. So anytime he plays a king, he can. It's very similar. He can act without restriction to increase the physical intimacy between himself and Gonsalvo. So this is kind of a mirror to Gonsalvo's action. Again, each time you play a king, you should elevate it to a new level of physical intimacy that you haven't done before. Again, we had a brief discussion on this. We will be kind of, I would like it if we can kind of deal with a certain amount of erotic, description here, but we're not going to get like super graphic. But we'll kind of judge tone, I think, on that. Finally, Maria doesn't have has a similar sort of effect, though hers is called support. and happens when she plays a queen. When Maria plays a queen, she can give another character advice about what they should do, how they should act, whatever. When I do that, what I will do is I will place that card in front of one of the other players once I've given them advice. And from that point on, until you play it, you can treat that card as if it was in your hand. So you can always play that card if you want to, instead of playing a card from your hand. If you, assuming to do that, you have to sort of act on Maria's advice, but that's sort of an extra thing you can do. The final action that is available to everyone is to pass. So when you pass, you have to discard a card from your hand to the discard pile, and then you will draw a new card to your hand from the deck. When you do this, you can't act with your character. But instead, what you'll do is you'll give a short bit of description about the scene, just something in the environment. So, you know, the talking about the weather or what the room looks like, or any sort of something that just gives a bit of richness and detail to the scene. You can choose to discard whenever you want to. You can always choose to discard on your turn if you want to. You may have tactical reasons for doing so, or you may just think there's nothing I specifically want to do at the minute, so I'll just fill in some background detail. The other thing you can always do is just have a short pause. We'll just have a short moment's silence, just to build tension if you can't think of anything to add as a background detail. The exception to this is if you can't play a card, you have to discard. If you have no cards in hand, you have to pass. Obviously, you don't have a card to discard, but you will draw a new card. Each scene will end when everyone has passed in succession. If you have passed once, you can then continue playing. It's only once everyone has passed in succession that we end that scene. You're not sort of out of the scene as soon as you pass. And I think that is it. So yeah, as I said, with when you take your action, you act in a way that's appropriate to your character and the card you've played, and give a short description of what you do, what you say, what it looks like.
Got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I do not know how this game ends.
Yeah, so essentially, it's kind of a bit of a soft ending, really. Essentially, the game ends when the threat to their relationship has been resolved. There's not really a mechanical system for that happening. It's just when we decide that threat is no longer really relevant. So it's either been stopped or it's happened, and we essentially choose when we want it to end. Broadly speaking. Also, that's another point. When we have a moment of passion, you can choose to de-escalate the threat. What this basically means is if you think that moment of passion has meant that the threat that was at a certain level is now less serious, we can take a number of cards back depending on how de-escalated we think it is. If we were playing with the force character Olivier, he can specifically de-escalate threats with his special card as well. So the last thing I think I need to just explain briefly before we start is playing the cards. Like I said, when you play a card, it has to equal or exceed the value of a card that's been played previously. For this purpose, number cards have the value of the card, so from 2 to 10. All face cards, including jokers and aces, are in 11. So you can play any face card on any other face card. Right. So if there are no other questions, that again for the first game there is like a set scene that we start with. For subsequent scenes, we'll have a little discussion about what we want to see. So if there's no further questions, I will read out sort of the beginning to that scene, and then we can get started.
All right, go for it.
Cool. So, the car races through the dark mountain roads, crisscrossing through fascist and Republican territories, dodging roadblocks and checkpoints. Pelted by rain and gravel, it finally arrives at a noble house, well kept but ancient. In front of the house stands a beautiful man, his eyes distant, his mouth frowning slightly. Next to him, a maid holds an umbrella to keep the rain off her master's long flowing hair. The driver opens Gonsalvo's door. Somehow, at that moment, the boy understands that he has arrived at his new home. Does he dare give voice to his feelings? In this remote territory, can he find shelter from the horrors of war? Who is this gorgeous mystery man, and what hidden debt does he owe Gonsalvo's murdered father? So, that's our establishing shot. And with that, it is Gonsalvo to start. So, as I say, you can play any card from your hand at this point, because obviously we don't have a leading card at the minute, and give a brief action.
You're muted, Dave. Dave, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Oh, let's try that again. Right. So, David, sorry to check in there. If I just drag a card into the play area, right? Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Cool. So, I think Gonsalvo will step out of the car. He doesn't say anything, but he looks at Honore with the rain dripping down the umbrella, the only thing dry in this terrible, wet, stormy night. And he sort of gently bites his lip, but looks down towards the floor, holding his only possessions in a small bag.
Cool. So, I'm actually going to discard a card here for my first action. And I'll draw up a new one. So, the rain is sort of pelting down on the car, bouncing off of the umbrella above Honore's head. And in the distance, we just hear that first rumble of thunder over the mountains.
Okay, so I'm going to do the same. Discard the card and draw a new one. As the thunder rumbles, the Honore's face is briefly lit, and you can see that he's kind of beautiful but rough looking, with a stubble and a relatively fresh scar on his cheek. He doesn't make any facial expressions, but his eyes light up when he sees the young man.
So I will play again then. Gonsalvo is standing there still in the rain and shuffles forward uneasily. Cold rain on warm skin, steam raising from him. He looks eagerly at Honore or Maria for instruction, unsure of what he should do next.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I got a freeze there.
Sorry, that was also my problem. I'd not unmuted myself. It's a problem switching between screens. I do it all the time. But yeah, Maria is going to beckon Gonsalvo forward. Come in, boy. You'll catch your death standing out in the rain. Get inside, and we'll get you warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
Honore takes the boy by his arm and brings him inside, starting to question him about his journey, about his father. Remarks about the how similar he is to his dear departed father, and he doesn't realize it's making Gonsalvo feel emotions. It's not something that he considers at this very moment.
So I'm going to play a red card and make you consider it, I think, a heart. So,
not consider it, so...
Yeah. I think Gonzalo, this is the first time that someone has touched Gonzalo with warmth since his parents died, and he takes the embrace and leans in and embraces Honore and looks up at him and says, "Thank you so much for your kindness. My father spoke well of you."
I'm just going to leap in there very briefly. That was nice in general. Probably best to avoid embracing at the minute, because that's something we might want to save for physical intimacy later.
Okay.
But no, that was nice. I like the rest of that was cool.
And you're muted again.
I will get the hang of this one day. Sorry, I think we've actually got slightly out. We can continue playing. I think we've got slightly out of sequence. I think with the face cards, you've always got to play another face card on top. They don't sort of wrap around. So all face cards are worth 11. But we'll carry on from where we are now.
Sorry, could you say that again? Because I'm not following. Worth 11? That's not something that
Yeah, so all face cards are essentially worth 11. So you have to play another face card onto a face card, basically. They don't sort of wrap around. So you've always got to play an equal or higher card when you play it.
Oh.
So it's fine. We'll carry on from where we are now, because it doesn't really make that much odds, but just for sort of future.
Wait, okay, so when I'm playing a card, it needs to be higher or equal than what's already there.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And,
sorry, I don't think I made that clear when I was.
And if there's a face card, then I have to play another.
You have to play.
It can be any value.
That's right. Yep. It can be. All face cards are worth exactly the same, basically.
That's fair enough. Okay. So we're starting with that now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I will play the King of Clubs and the which doesn't do anything special for me. And Maria will take Gonsalvo's coat off of him and hang it on a peg by the door, and she'll obviously she'll say that there's a the fire is going in the drawing room, master, and she nods to Honore, and says, I will go and prepare some tea.
Do you immediately play another one because it's a face card?
So, David, just check. Shall I be retopping my hand every time, or am I?
No, only when you discard, you draw another card.
Okay.
So essentially, we'll get to a point where everyone's out of cards, and we'll at that point all have to pass, and the scene will end. Is essentially sort of the rhythm it works to.
Good, understood. Right. So that being the case, I haven't got a face card, so I will.
Wait. First, David playing Maria, you play the face card.
Yeah, that's right.
And you said you need to play another one.
No, sorry, the next player needs to play a face card on top of that.
Right.
Or pass if you don't have a face card, or pass if you can just choose to pass as well. You're never required to play a card, but to play a card you would need to play a face card.
But is there any way in this game, once a face card has been played, to play something of a lower value?
No, not at that point.
Okay.
So that's when you have to start discarding, and then eventually you'll either get a face card into hand or the scene will end, basically.
I see. And when the scene ends, do we get new cards, or
when the scene ends, we draw back up to 5 cards? Yep.
Draw back up, or discard and draw?
Draw back up. Yep.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you for your patience.
No, that's quite It's like I said. It takes a little bit of explaining. It's always a little bit more difficult with doing it online with this sort of thing as well, because obviously cards are designed to be physical. So it's but yeah. So if you can't play, then you have to discard. Well, yeah, no. So that's right. If you can't play, you have to discard. But other than that, yeah.
Oh.
Understood. So I think it's round to me again, right?
No, it's Honore.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Is Joker considered a face card?
It is, yeah.
Lovely. So I played this Joker, and I'm basically pushing Gonsalvo away firmly. And I say, Gonsalvo, I appreciate your earnestness, but from now on, you're going to need to learn how to take care of yourself, be a man. You're welcome in my house. And I kind of choke up, not knowing how to deal with the situation any further. I point to where the drawing room is. Sit by the fire.
So I can't follow face card, so I'm going to discard. Oh. So do I just draw that? How do I discard this interface?
Just draw it onto the discard pile for now. We'll clear that off when.
Okay, yeah, and then I'll draw a card, right?
Yep, that's right.
Ooh. Okay, so with that, Gonzalo looks down to the floor, and then we'll head to the drawing room, which is white-walled, but with leather chairs and a roaring fire. Gonzalo takes a seat alone in the flames of the fire.
Nice. Yeah. A few minutes later, Maria will bustle into the drawing room. She's got a tray with a steaming pot of tea on it, and two cups on saucers, and a little pile of sort of almond biscuits. She will pour 2 cups of tea, and then retreat to stand at the side of the room.
Honore is looking out the window into the storm, and as he gazes into the distance, it becomes apparent that he's quite lonely in this massive house, half of which is probably unused because he wouldn't have the time or opportunity to take advantage of this massive display of wealth at his fingertips. But whether he actually has the resources or to maintain it is completely another question.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm going to play a jack. I think as the lightning strikes, Honore is looking in the window. Gonsalvo is peering through in the living room into a mirror, and the light that flashes connects their eyes for the first time, and they look deeply through and into each other for the first time.
Yeah. And as I said, for these scenes, if you want, I mean, you know, you don't have to, but for these scenes, when you play a Jack or when Honore plays a king, we can actually go into a bit more of an extended, you know, one-on-one scene sort of thing. If you want to leave it at that, that's fine. But you can have a bit more. A bit more of a scene, and at this point as well, because this is there is some extra emotional intimacy here. Honore is also able to express his emotions in this sort of scene as well, because that's the point of it. But as I said, if you want to leave it there, that's fine. But you obviously can proceed with doing more if you want.
Dave, how do you feel?
Well, I think as the eyes connect, then Gonsalvo will think to himself, those eyes are so deep. There is mystery and torment inside there. Though he, Lewis, has told me to be a man and look after myself, who will look after him? And he just looks sadness in the eyes, and then it will be interesting to understand how Honore feels as their eyes meet for the first time.
I suppose that as Honore notices the penetrating gaze that's been studying him, he'd react in a almost an allergic manner, flinch and be quite visibly flustered, drink his tea in one big gulp, and remove himself from the room as quickly as possible, trying not to appear as interested or as excited as he probably is.
Yeah, that was nice. So I'm going to discard as well. I'm going to discard. And as Honore marches out, there's another booming crack of thunder and another flash of lightning lights up the room, briefly showing that Maria is still stood by the doorway.
Right. So I'm discarding. I'm drawing one.
Oh, I forgot to draw.
Honore looks at Maria, and he probably notices that she's not just observing. She's not just a passive presence in the room. I think that will be a moment where he realizes that she also has she's a living being, not just a servant, with her own complex emotions. Not knowing how to deal with that, he just backs by. Prefers to shift his gaze to the room with and concentrate on admiring a hunting trophy. Let's say a moose's head, and mounted on the wall.
Cool.
I'm going to need to discard as well. I think Gonsalvo is alone again as he looks around the room and drinks his tea. Spots on the wall a painting of Honore with his parents when Honore was about the same age as Gonsalvo is now. The fiery gaze is still there in Honore's face, but he looks more boyish and joyful. And Gonsalvo wonders what made him such a hard man in the intervening years.
Cool. Right. As we have all passed in turn, that means the scene has now ended. So I will clear up all of these cards.
Cool.
And
I
we
suppose
can...
I can just draw for myself.
Yeah, that's right. We can all draw back up to 5 cards. Cool. Right. So now, what do we think we want the next scene to be? We can. I think there's actually a little list of sort of possible scene starters here, but we can just think of if there's something that you think would be you're interested in seeing. Honore always gets to essentially cast the deciding vote on what scene we do. But like I said, we can discuss and see what people fancy. We could go. Do we want to sort of move on to the next day, maybe, or do we want to have a scene later that evening?
I think the next day seems fine to me.
Yep.
Yeah. We could go. So yeah, I mean, we could maybe like have breakfast the next morning, or we could do something outside in the gardens or something. Is there any preferences people have? I'm fairly easy. Or even, as I said, if we do want to have something sort of in town or whatever, we can do scenes with other NPCs, and I'll just handle the NPCs on my turn, essentially.
I suppose it would be a good idea to do something on the grounds, like say Honore showing Gonsalvo around.
Sure thing. Yeah,
What do you think, Dave?
That's fine with me. Yeah, no problem at all. Maybe the stables.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. Yep. So we should all be up to 5 cards again, and once again, Dave, it's Gonsalvo to start the scene.
Okay. So I'll go low. They're in the stables. Honore is showing Gonsalvo the horses, which are clearly his pride and joy. Gonsalvo takes a shine to one of the horses with black fur but a white diamond strike between the eyes. He's stroking the horse, thinking how soft it is and how nice it is to touch and hold and feel something warm, loving after such a long time alone.
Oh. Yeah, so I'm going to discard. The stable has that thick, rich, sweet scent of hay to it. The sort of dust tickles at your noses, and yeah, it smells warm and sweet. And I'll draw a card.
Okay. Honore takes the black horse that Gonsalvo likes so much, and takes him outside, giving Gonsalvo the reins. While stepping outside, he sort of looks meaningfully at Gonsalvo and says, "I called him Raven, but that wasn't never quite right for him. He's never really connected to any of the other horses. He's never had a friend here, you see. I think he might have been a bit lonely Perhaps it's time for him to have a true companion. Honore hands the reins to Gonsalvo, perhaps even accidentally touching his hands a little. I suppose that would not just go for him, but that's where he finishes.
Yeah, that's nice.
I think Gonsalvo, as the fingers touch and the reins are passed in, his fingers tighten around the leather, and he thinks, is Honore talking about the horse or himself? Am I his companion? That's it, I think. Did everyone hear me then?
Yep. Sorry. No, I was just unmuting myself. So yeah. I think I'm going to do a very brief flashback here to sort of that morning. We just see as she was sort of bringing Honore his breakfast in bed sort of thing. Maria Maria says, "You must be gentle with the boy. He seems delicate. He has been through a lot. And I am going to play a queen for that, which I will give to Honore. And I'll put that there. So yeah, as I said, that means that you can, if you sort of act on Maria's advice, you can play that queen as if it was in your hand."
Okay, thank you. And do I get to keep it past the end of the scene?
You do, yeah. You get to keep it until it's used.
Fantastic.
Actually, that's a good point. I think you can still count that 10 as if it was there, just for ease of nothing of anything else, to be honest. But yes, it is now your turn anyway.
Okay, that's great. So Honore, in a few minutes later, Honore trots out on his horse, quite a swift-looking, with trim-necked, well-groomed gelding. It's a sort of a cavalry a cavalry horse, one that isn't too aggressive, but it clearly hasn't been trained for leisurely strolls. He immediately starts racing around, inviting Gonsalvo to ride with him. Come on, I'm going to show you around. You need to see what your new home looks like. Go on there, boy. Let's race to that forest over there. Can you see?
Okay. So I'm going to discard. I'm going to describe the forest as being full of cuts and channels. It is in blossom and in flower and smells full of spring, especially with the being the morning after the heavy rain. Gonsalvo mounts the horse and follows him.
Nice. David, you are muted.
I don't know how I keep. I'm sure I didn't mute myself anyway. I'm not usually this bad. Yeah. So the horse is going to thunder off after Honore, almost kind of not really paying attention to the fact that it's got a rider. It's just going to go for it. It doesn't really seem to be taking any commands from Gonsalvo at the minute, just sort of doing its own thing.
Nice. Okay, so I'm discarding, drawing one. Cool. So as they are racing through the countryside, the water splashes everywhere. The fields that are the sort of grazing fields through which they are riding aren't very well irrigated, and water is everywhere, splashing on the horses, on them. So as soon as they arrive at their destination, they are thoroughly soaked again, but this time not wearing any rain clothes. It's sort of a slightly different, less grim view that they present themselves.
Nice.
Can I check if an ace counts as a face card or not?
It absolutely does. Yep. It still counts as an 11, like any other. It does mean that we will start to see the threat appear, but that's to be honest a good thing, because we want a bit of the threat to show up, so that it gives us something to play with.
Was my thinking, because poor Maria left in the house on her own. Let's escalate the threat. So, do I describe the scene here, or do you describe the scene?
You describe the scene. So, what you and also I believe. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, because you do just advance the threat. You don't act as well, sort of thing. But yeah, so you get to describe a little scene of yeah.
I think the horses will eventually return. Honore and Gonsalvo are wet, dirty. Honore is actually smiling and laughing and lifts and helps Gonsalvo down from the horse. And poor Maria, who has been Gonsalvo's friend and servant since they were children, is left to feel alone.
Nice. Sorry, so who acts as the threat? If we just
so we can all so in the normal course of things, in any scene you describe, you can kind of reference the threat if you want to, but generally speaking, it will be the support characters who actually manifest it, because they control other sort of secondary characters, and usually the threat will be sort of embodied by secondary characters. But you can always kind of refer to the threat in your own actions.
I thought we'd established that Maria is jealous of Gonsalvo was the overall threat. Am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, no, you are correct. That's
okay.
That's our threat in this playthrough. So yeah, I think we as Maria is stood there watching the men dismount from the horse, just stood there in her apron. Another darker cloud rolls in across, and just a shadow passes across the courtyard and up her body. That's my discard.
Cool. So I'm going to discard this 9, draw 1. All right. And perhaps I'll flash back to how they were riding across the grounds. You can see that while the grounds are truly massive, they're not being very well maintained. The time and the political climate isn't great for landowners, and especially not ones who hail from wealthy families. They're all facing tougher times, and while there still is enough activity to support Honore and his small household, parts of the grounds are either turning into fallow or are just lying there unused.
Nice. Okay.
It's down to me again, right?
Yep, that's right.
So I'm going to discard. And I'm going to add to the details of that. It's true, some of the fields are fallow and untended, but instead of just weeds there are plenty of beautiful meadow flowers and wildflowers growing.
Nice. Right, and that's everyone's passed in a row now, so this scene will end. I'll clear up those cards that are there.
Really? Okay.
And everyone can draw back up to 5 again.
You should have left the ace.
Oh, that's a good point. I think I can. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Just, where is the? Oh, I might have to bear with me 1 sec. I can get into the.
All right.
If I can remember which screen it's in. Yeah. Oh, where is? I know there's a way of seeing the discard pile, but it doesn't want to show up for me now.
It was the ace of spades, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So if anyone draws the ace of spades, you just want to drop it back in there and
that's
again.
fair. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there's oh no, wait, I found it. There we go. Ace of spades. There we go. Cool. Yep, and I will now draw up.
Also, I've had a queen. Just remembered about it.
Oh yes, you did. Sorry, I was overzealous in my. It was a queen of clubs, I think, but it doesn't actually matter that much.
No, thank you.
Well, the only one that has any particular effect is the queen of hearts, because obviously it's a heart, so you can, have your special action with it. But yeah, cool. So, right, what do we want the next scene to be? We do now have an ace in play, so we can start getting some threat manifestations around. But is there a specific scene we want to see? We've obviously just come back from the horse ride. We could go for something quite soon after that, or we can go for maybe an evening meal, or
I think an evening meal and the preparations of it could be quite interesting.
Sure thing.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, so no, that it will be the meal. We'll describe exactly what each of us is doing as we go around. So yeah, and again, as ever, it's Gonsalvo to start.
Okay, so where have I lost mine? There we are. Right, so we'll set the scene that Gonsalvo has is being seated by Maria, and she's explaining the forks and the cutlery. And I think that what will happen is Gonsalvo will say to Maria, or ask him the question, why is it, Maria, Honore lives alone? Surely there must be someone. Why is he not wed?
My oh, sorry, yeah, that's yeah, it's difficult not to get drawn in. Cool. So I will play Maria will almost for a moment almost a scowl crosses her face, and she slaps, not like properly slaps, but just kind of like, you know, bats at the back of his hand as he sort of you know, at the table, and says, "Elbows off the table, boy. This is we are not peasants here." As to the master's living arrangements, he lives as he pleases, and it is neither your nor my position to judge what he does. You are a guest here, and you will afford him the proper respect.
Nice. Honore storms into the room, stomping his thigh-high leather boots. Sits at the head of the table with a wide grin on his face. Then reconsiders, grabs his plate and puts it next to Gonsalvo, resetting himself from his usual place. He bellows, "I haven't had this much fun in months, perhaps even years. Oh my! The last time I've had I felt the wind and the spring was, that's probably back when I was riding like that with your father. That was truly an exhilarating experience. Why is the dinner not served? Come on, we're all hungry." He slaps the table, not angrily, but not patiently either.
So I'm going to discard. And Maria serves from the table, and takes from the dresser a hearty stew and pours 2 glasses of wine, and then steps back away from the 2 men eating.
Okay.
There's just the sound of knives and forks clattering against the china, and the rich smoky paprika scent coming up from the stew, as the 2 men eat.
Okay, I'm going to use the queen that has been kindly given to me. But I need to place it over here because otherwise it just goes under the other one.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that's fine.
So as the stew is nearly finished, the Honore is a little bit more composed and back to his usual, back inside his usual cell. So, Gonsalvo, tell me, what is it that you hope to achieve? Do you have any passions, any ambitions that I should know of? What is it that interests you? Education, military career? Do you desire to be wed? What is it that you want from life?
Am I able to answer that question?
You'll have to play a card. So if you have to discard the no, we'll have to just leave it hanging pregnant in the air for the time being.
Discard. I think pregnant in the air. He looks down into his plate and doesn't seem to be able to provide the words. How do you discard out the corner? Oh, done it now. Right, fine.
Cool.
So pregnant silence hangs in the air. The answer to the question, probably strange, making the mood more difficult.
As Honore is speaking, Maria's come up to top up everyone's wine glasses with the one of those straw-wrapped glass bottles of red wine. As she pours Gonsalvo's drink so clumsily, she accidentally dumps half the bottle out into his lap. Says, "Oh, young master, I'm so terribly, terribly sorry. That was clumsy of me." She puts the table down, the wine bottle down on the table, and she says, "You must come with me, and I will get you out of those before they stain." And she sort of grabs him by the elbow, and it's a firm, hard grip. It hurts Gonsalvo as she sort of drags him off of the chair and out towards the door.
Okay, I suppose I'm going to need to discard this time. Which means that Honore appears a bit dismayed at the young man's lack of resistance or even passive demeanor. And he looks longingly at the display of a variety of weaponry on the wall, crossed sabers. Squints his eyes. There's a plan there.
Okay. So again, I'm going to have to discard. If I can, maybe. Yeah. So Maria has slammed the door shut and left Gonsalvo in a cold, dark room where he feels embarrassed and alone.
Cool. I'm also going to discard. And we just have a close up on the chair, the place setting for the table where Gonsalvo was sat. We just see the drops of red wine dropping down off of the table and pooling in a little pool of red on the tiled floor. And that will be the end of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
As we've all passed. I'm trying to delete the correct ones. So yeah, draw back up to 5. I may need to reshuffle the discards in soon. I think we're probably getting close.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Oops. Where's that one gone?
Okay, so in the meantime, I've got an idea for a scene.
Yeah.
Perhaps sort of the next day or a few days later, but not too long. Honore would be giving Gonsalvo a fencing lesson.
That sounds good.
Mm-hmm. So we'll set the scene that Honore is not at all bad at fencing, having been trained previously. I'm going to play a heart card.
Nice.
With a decisive action, which is with a flip of the rapier, he pushes past Honore's defenses and places the tip of the blade atop his heart, looking into his eyes.
Nice. Oh yeah, go on. We will. In sort of the salon. Salon, is that the word? Where the fencing stuff is anyway. Maria just happens to be in there doing some dusting whilst they're dueling, and we just see her take down one of the foils off of the wall and just flex it a little and check the weight of it before she puts it back on the wall.
Right. While Gonsalvo might be a decent swordsman, Honore has been in the military and he knows the tricks. In the next play, the fencing is much more violent, and it ends with Honore violently grabbing Gonsalvo by the wrist, and with a tug, a pull, and a twist, Gonsalvo is on the floor at Honore's feet.
Is this pain or is this pleasure? I don't want him to ever let me go.
Nice. I think we see Maria sees Gonsalvo looking up at Honore from the floor, his hand. They're sort of not quite the hands entwined, but they're looking at each other, and she just turns around on her heel and storms up the room, and the door slams shut behind her, and sort of sets a few of the sabers on the wall rattling.
That's cool. It's good she's not here to see this. That happened because your stance is all wrong. Stand lower. Honore places himself behind Gonsalvo and forcibly pushes his hips a bit lower in a more wider, more agile stance. And your hand, as he moves his palm across from the elbow up to Gonsalvo's wrist, like that. See, it's clear that it's as much of a lesson as it is an excuse.
Nice.
I think after the discarding the lesson
You can. I was going to say you can remember this. This is a this is another moment of passion scene. So you can actually break into some more. Yeah, yeah.
Forgot. Right. I think he will adjust his stance and say like this, but push back slightly too much, so the shoulder is touching into Honore's chest. His arm comes back down behind him and touches Honore on the thigh. Is my stance correct?
Honore looks into Gonsalvo's hand, on Gonsalvo's eyes, forgetting about the weapons. Are we fencing, or is it grappling now? He sighs, with his hot breath being clearly felt on Gonsalvo's neck.
I think he will move his hand further around the thigh and clench Honore's buttock and say, either form, victory is to subdue your opponent.
I would say that since this game is hot guys making out, hot guys make out.
Yeah, that's
and a veil.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So there is a moment of passion. Now, as part of this, we can decide to de-escalate the threat. If it makes sense, and I think
to leave it, honestly.
Yeah, certainly. It's an option that's there. We can. So it's Gonsalvo to play. If we sort of pick up, it'll still be the same scene, just sort of after they've had their embrace and their making out.
Okay, so I'm gonna discard, and Gonsalvo walks over to the hot and sweaty, takes off his shirt and pours a bucket of cold water over himself, shaking his shaggy hair.
Cool. And we'll go for that because it seems like a good opportunity to do so. As he's kind of, occupied with washing himself off, there's a sudden crack, and the handle of a broom sweeps down and catches him between the shoulders. And Maria sort of standing there with a mocking laugh, said, "Oh, I thought you'd been learning to fence. I thought you'd be able to dodge that."
All right, it's my turn. Discarding. I suppose that the makeout session has left tangible evidence in the form of discarded weapons, towels still just left in the middle of the room for Maria to clean up later, just haphazardly messy.
Nice.
I am going to do discard again, and if I can, maybe. Oh, yeah, it goes. Woo. So I think standing, dripping in water, but unable to look Maria in the eyes. Gonsalvo turns and skulks back into the house.
I'm also discarding. Oops.
Wasn't there
Drawing.
a third discard?
Yeah, so I'm also discarding. And I think we just sort of see Maria stood. She hasn't really moved from beside the well, and she's just kind of got the broom hanging limply in one hand. We just see sort of a breeze pick up and blow sort of a hair across her face, and just see like a couple of tears just pricking the corners of her eyes. And that's scene. What I'm going to do actually is just take a quick 5-minute break here, and just go and grab a drink and stuff quickly. And then we should have time to sort of wrap up this one, and then possibly move on to another round if we want.
Yeah,
cool.
So yeah, if we come back at the hour, and I'll see everyone in a sec.
Sure, that makes perfect sense.
But yeah, how are you finding it so far?
Good. Now we found pace, and you got the engine. It's like any game. So you sort of the first half an hour, you're picking up the flow, but after
Exactly.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I've only played it once or twice before. I think the first time we played it, this is why I've been a bit like well, not too harsh, I don't think, but we kind of got a bit too into like just doing lots of dialogue and whatever in like every action that someone took, sort of thing. And it was like it was one of those we had an enjoyable game, but we weren't really playing hot guys making out. Essentially, it was at that point it did just become like the four of us or whatever sat around a table chatting sort of thing. It was whereas I think I quite like the way you get those sort of quite some almost like sparse scenes, but quite intense, which I quite like.
Yeah, it's a romance game. So if you've got to don't fight, people don't buy into it and act on that as the overall, that should be I suppose the ongoing truth of the moves you're making. Then I could see that it could just become a bit Prisoner of Zenda rather than maybe anything else.
All right, folks, I'm back.
Hey.
So, what's next?
Yeah. What sort of scene do we fancy doing? I'm wondering. Sorry, I had half a thought and then lost it.
Maybe something that would enable Maria to properly fuck shit up.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think. I was trying to think where would be a good kind of dramatic place to do that. Maybe I was thinking maybe Maria is like preparing a bath for Gonsalvo that evening.
Okay.
Sort of in the well, there probably is a I'm thinking like maybe it's an older house, so it's kind of it's not like hot running water. She's got to like fill up the copper kettle sort of thing and do that.
Yeah, that would make sense for the time and a yes modernized house. I'm happy with that.
Cool. So yes, Gonsalvo to start. Oh, actually, wait. I don't know if I've drawn up my cards. No, I have. In fact, I've not done the clear up for the last scene. Sorry. I'll do that now quickly. So yeah, draw back up to 5, and then we'll get the scene kicked off.
Okay, ready.
Cool. Yeah, and yeah, feel free to begin whenever.
Right. So
someone has a guinea pig.
Yeah, that's me.
We've got one downstairs as well. I thought I recognised that sound. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, carry on, Dave.
I think Gonsalvo takes off his towel and is stepping into the water, which is probably a little too hot, and it reminds him of Honore's hot breath on his neck earlier in that day. He sinks into the water as if he was sinking into Honore's embrace.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah. Maria says, put your head forward, I'll get your hair cleaned, it's a mess. And she pours another sort of kettle of water over, and it's like, it's uncomfortably hot. It's like not quite scalding, but not far off.
Okay. So I'm putting it as an action, but I'm not explicit in the scene.
That's fine. Yep.
Honore is making a lot of ruckus, and in the bathroom, it sounds like he's moving some heavy furniture, tossing crates around, stomping on the floor above the bath. So you can hear his activities quite well. But what is the purpose of them remains a mystery.
Nice.
Right. Gonsalvo will leap out of the bath with the hot water is put on and turn to face Maria and say, "How dare you? You accuse me of being a guest here, then treat me as one, for I may be a guest, but you are nothing but a servant."
No. I'm actually going to discard. And Maria is just sort of stood there for the moment, and we just hear that soft drip of the water dripping down off Gonsalvo's body and sort of pooling around his feet.
I think a discard is also in order. The bathhouse is completely filled with steam, which is escaping through open windows. The whiff of cold spring air, as it's well into nighttime already, makes the room really chilly when you're out of the bath, but unbearably hot while you're inside. And for any third party that might be looking out for it, the massive clouds of steam escaping from the room might be a clue.
Okay. I'm going to discard as well. Gonsalvo bends down to pick up his towel. He is covered, glistening with water, and it's very clear that you can see where Honore grabbed him by the wrist earlier, and the marks on his neck where Honore kissed him passionately slightly later.
Nice. That will be seen. I knew that was a gamble when I discarded rather than played. Yep. But I quite like that as just a little. So we draw back up. I mean, to be honest, we can probably do a continuation that's follows
Pretty
on the.
close by, yeah.
Oh, I don't. That card seems to have. I'm actually just going to try something for a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no. That's fine. No, so just one of the cards that froze up on my screen, but it's I think it's just artifacting. Cool. So yeah, I think maybe a scene, possibly just like outside in the corridor leading away from the bathhouse, or something like that. Because we kind of left in a dramatic point. I want to kind of continue with the same scenario, but I quite like that we've just had like a little break in the tension of it, sort of thing.
Somewhere grand, like on the top of the grand stairs by the grand staircase.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that.
I'm glad you do, because I'm going to play my fourth ace as Gonsalvo storms out the towel around him to seek Honore, fed up of the cruelty and bullying of Maria. And then Maria looks at Gonsalvo at the top of the stairs.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, as I said, I'm going to. This is one of the places where the rulebook isn't very clear on whether the ace that's now gone down on the table still counts for the card that you're playing it as. So I think I'm just going to lead in with a low card again, because it might as well at this point. Yeah, so I think Maria is going to storm across the hallway towards Gonsalvo and say, "We were happy here in this house before you came along. You've been nothing but a distraction to the master. I know what you're doing, and it's disgusting." And she is stalking towards him, and she looks properly angry. But that's the end of my action.
Honore emerges from his room upstairs. He's on the same level as Maria. Clearly, he has heard the exchange, and he rushes to the top of the stairs that Maria started descending. He grabs her by the back of her frock. "What is this insolence? What is going on here?" And he looks at Gonsalvo for explanation. Clearly, he's deaf on whatever Maria might say.
Gonsalvo is deep in thoughts at Maria's words, and then seeing Honore ride into his rescue, he thinks to himself, "Oh, actually, no, I couldn't have played that. Sorry, I should have played that card."
Oh no, I think I should be able to. Oh no, you should be able to click on that 5 and take it back into your hand. I think.
How can I do that?
It's a good question. If you
right-click the card, take the card.
Hey, unclick it, or
Right-click.
I've dragged it off screen. Where is it? This is
we can sort that
Sorry,
in seconds.
Right, I can see it. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, that's that. I've not seen the discard pile up until this bit. Sorry, it's
no, it's
on my screen. Never mind. Right, I'll try one sec. Right, okay. And he's reflecting and go, happy. He's never been happy here, not until I came into his life. end reflection. But he doesn't answer. He's already lost in his own mind.
Right. That was internal monologue.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
So at that, at that point, Maria is going to she's going to sort of struggle against Honore's grip, and turns around to him and says, "Master, I cannot believe that you've let this little harlot parade about this place like he owns it."
Honore lets go of her and embraces Gonsalvo. It's clear that he's speaking to both of them, but he only looks into the young man's eyes. Be cautious about what you're saying, because it might just come true one day. No, wait, sorry, wrong card. Oh, boy, that's... yeah, I meant to do this. It was supposed to be a moment of passion.
Yeah, no, that's cool, yeah.
So, so let's say, because it might just come true one day, if you wish it.
So, Gonsalvo will drop his towel and look into Honore's eyes and say, I stand before you, just a boy, looking to be loved.
Honore turns to Maria as if he's expecting her to say something inappropriate, just waiting for it.
And I think Maria is just like stood there, like she's like staring at Gonsalvo standing there naked, and she's just like looking completely like dead-eyed and shocked.
Okay, the tension rises as the standoff isn't broken by anything.
Oh, sorry. I think we're still actually in like your action essentially. So because we're in a sort of we're in a moment of passion. So we can kind of play the scene out a little bit if you want. But
right,
yeah.
To be honest, when I sort of turned to Maria, I expected the moment of passion to like.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine.
We can. If we want to continue.
Yeah, I mean, no. So if you want to continue, you can. But we can end it now if you want to move on to Gonsalvo.
It will be to Maria, I think. Oh no, yeah, Gonsalvo, indeed. Dave, what do you think?
That's fine with me. I think. Well, I think in that case, if it's an option, then Gonsalvo will take Honore's put his hands on his face and pull him close into an embrace and then a kiss.
Yeah. Cool. And do you want to de-escalate the threat at this point?
Oh hell no. Jilted servant lover. That's
Cool.
We've been building up to this, specifically this, for like the last hour.
So I'm going to discard. Maybe. Right, but I'm going to discard. So, as Honore and Gonsalvo continue to kiss, the gaslights flicker, the rain begins, and the storm returns.
Cool.
And yeah, we just hear as the rain sort of starts to patter down against the roof, there's just the sound of a ticking clock, and it chimes out the hour.
I suppose I could just discard and the grand staircase is creaking menacingly as the two men ascend them, leaving Maria in a state of stupor somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's nice. Cool. So that is scene, and I think this is probably the end of this playthrough of it, because I think the threat has been fairly conclusively resolved, in the sense that it's has nowhere else to go now, really, except
You ain't getting between me and my man, Maria.
exactly.
Oh, I had hoped she would. I'd heard her down the stairs.
If I had an action card, yeah, what would have happened? But good.
Cool. So I will recall all the cards.
Okay, I need to take 2, if that's all right.
No, that's perfectly fine. Yep, we can take 2, and then we can just do another quick one. Yeah, that's cool.
Keep that little one.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll be back in a sec as well, actually.
No problem.
Okay, good to go.
Would you rather play Maria or Gonsalvo?
I don't really have a preference there.
Cool. Dave, do you have? Would you rather go for Maria or Honore?
I'll do Maria.
Sure. In which case, I guess I'll go for Honore and Swearich if you want to go for Gonsalvo, if everyone's cool with that.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I figure that gives everyone a chance to play something different then. I'll just have a look and see what ideas they have for threats, what might be interesting. So I'll read through the ones that we have that are in the book, and if we think something else that would be cool as well, that's also good. One of them is Honore's former lover Franz, now a Nazi agent, returns. A fire breaks out in the mansion. Fascist troops surround the town. Gonsalvo is depressed by grief for his parents, and Honore is arrested for political crimes. Do any of those particularly appeal to anyone?
Political crimes or the troops, considering this is around Spanish Civil War, because we didn't really explore that in the first playthrough.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It could have happened anywhere. It didn't really sort of happen in the setting, I suppose. So that might be
quite... exactly. Yeah. No, that certainly. Do you have a preference out of those?
I think.
Let me throw a third option into the ring, which I'm not really preferring to the others. But I was thinking it might have been quite interesting if there were troops stationed in Honore's on Honore's ground, or even in the house.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
That's something that the fascist government was fond to do.
Yep. And yeah, it makes the whole thing a bit more, and it's obviously still a threat to the relationship because obviously they've got to try and not, probably don't want to be caught by troops in intimate situations. So I know that certainly works for me. Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy to go with that. We will. So essentially, in terms of like characters, we'll just go for like a complete hard reset and sort of start back from zero. We won't necessarily do introducing Gonsalvo into the house, but we're sort of in terms of like levels of intimacy, stuff that's actually happening between the characters. We'll just pass on those. Maria is obviously still, and this time Maria isn't necessarily consumed by jealousy, so that makes her slightly less antagonistic and slightly more helpful in the whole situation. And obviously, I said, as we mentioned, I'll repeat this because we sort of said it like right at the beginning, because and it was very focused on the one we just did on those three characters. But obviously, Dave, you are welcome to play secondary characters in scenes as well as or instead of Maria. So
okay,
cool. Right, so I'll deal out cards.
So what would the opening scene be?
I think maybe Gonsalvo hasn't been here long. He's maybe only just arrived, but maybe like a day or so after his arrival, we have like we'll say I forgot what the term was. Not Republican.
Nationalist.
Nationalist. That's it. A nationalist officer and his unit will arrive, and they sort of drive up in one of those like big staff cars and a sort of half-covered wagon full of troops, and they will turn up and expect a warm welcome, because obviously this is this is an aristocratic home, and traditionally the aristocrats were on the side of the nationalists by and large, so sort of expect a warm welcome and sort of essentially invite themselves into the house.
Okay, so I'll start by putting an ace on the table.
Nice.
And the scene is that Gonsalvo has been just relaxing, having a stroll in the gardens as the column of fascist troops have arrived. And it just so happens that he was the one to greet them to the place in the first place. In the first place. But he himself didn't feel very at home there yet. So he just stumbled and mumbled his way through the greetings, clearly bringing attention to himself as some sort of an unfit, inept young man who should probably be in the military by now.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, and Dave, it's your turn as Maria, or as I said, if you want to play as one of the secondary characters, you can. Like I said, I think I'm going to go with the with not counting the ace as being played, because it just makes it easier that way. We get a bit more scene out.
Otherwise, they pretty much kill the scene, don't they? Right. So I will play. Maria quickly goes into servant mode. What about Honore's feelings and actions in relation to the nationalists, and quickly ushers the captain into the house with an offer of wine and some small tapas, leaving Honore alone with Gonsalvo.
Cool. This is quite interesting because my so I think Honore is looks like, and you know, I'll just do like a bit of backfill. You know, obviously we've had the last couple of days have been very much Honore in his, you know, I am stern and patrician and not expressing emotion sort of thing. But Gonsalvo, we see that there is he looks worried, and we'll turn to say, Gonsalvo, you must be careful with these men. I fear that if they discover who you are, who your father was, then they may cause trouble for you, and I could not bear that. I do not wish to see any harm come to you. And then he's kind of going to look back towards, sort of, you know, get his, you know, straighten his shirt and adjust his cravat sort of thing.
Cool. So, as the conversation is taking place, the troops are unloading weapons and provisions into the West Wing that they are starting to slowly take over. It seems that almost half of the house from now on is just going to be barracks.
Nice.
I think I will. I will, because you've got to do it if you've got it, really.
This isn't going to go well.
I think inside the house, the captain, the wine is poured, and the captain says to Maria, so which among this household are socialists and anarchists? We have heard rumors. ... Maria looks concerned, but does not, and says, no one, I do not know where you could have got such ideas from. The captain does not seem convinced.
Again, in the oops. So yeah, we hear there's a clock ticking in the room in the sort of the pregnant silence that follows the Maria and the captain's words, and we hear with the ticking of the clock, we sort of hear footsteps coming down the corridor towards the room. For clarity, as sort of blah words, as Honore is coming sort of this way.
So, oh, I can't do that, can I? No, I can't. So, the even a passing glance at the amount of provisions that the troops have brought reveals that they are either not here to stay, or that they will rely heavily on the hosts to provide for themselves, which means that they either here for a purpose, or that they're going to be a heavy burden on Honore and his household. It also seems that the soldiers present are not very fond of the nobility, as they're rowdy. They talk loudly and take over the place like it belongs to them, even though in the eyes of anyone of better birth, they're basically peasants with peasants with courage granted to fools by weapons.
Nice.
Wait, is that a scene?
No, we've I think Dave, I think you played last, didn't you? I think you played that. No, you didn't.
Yeah. I played
Oh
the
yes,
8.
you played
So,
the 8. So yes, you can play on that 5, or you can pass, depending on what you want to do.
I'm just going to. I'm just going to. Well, I'm going to. Can I just pass and then end the scene? I'm happy to do that because I think that is a good end scene. Right?
You can choose to do that. At any point.
I haven't got anything more to add to that. I think we'll take the end scene.
Sure thing. So yeah, if you discard a card and then give your detail.
Right. So we'll do that then. So I'll put that into the discard. And I think the final moment of the scene then will be the Franconistas raising the flag of the Nationalist faction on the parapets of the house.
Nice. That's a nice point to end it at. Cool. So if people want to draw back up, I'll get rid of those. I don't know why I keep doing that. Right. Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe for a scene, if we have like a short skip forwards, but like still essentially when the soldiers have just arrived, and I'm thinking maybe Honore has now sort of sat down with the captain, and they've had sort of the initial boring, hey, we're here and we're taking over your place conversation, but they're still sort of sitting and drinking as we come in on this scene.
Okay.
And obviously Gonsalvo can be here or not as you feel appropriate.
I think, you know what? I'm just gonna throw a curveball. Gonsalvo is in his room crying his eyes out.
Oh. Cool.
I think Maria will be passing and hear Gonsalvo crying and open the door and ask, Gonsalvo, what is wrong?
And I think we see Honore is sat with the captain still downstairs. They've had sort of a couple of glasses of wine. Honore says, "I will extend you, Captain, the hospitality owed a guest, but this is not my war." And he kind of gives the captain a sort of firm gaze. I was like, not a glare, but he's obviously not taking any nonsense.
Okay. In the meantime, Gonsalvo expresses himself to Maria. How can Honore accept this man into his house? He says all those nice things that he's going to take care of me and about the promises that he's given to my father, but he allows men exactly like the ones who murdered my father into his house. I don't understand. Should I go? I don't know. And she just continues crying.
And I'm just going to sort of leap into the scene, if that's okay, and get in the same tenor as it. And I think we just see
I mean, this is not.
and I think we just sort of see as Honore is sitting there drinking, we see him just for a moment sort of look past the captain, and on one of the mantelpieces, on sort of the mantelpiece, there's a no, not the mantelpiece, on sort of a sideboard, there's a few pictures in frames. We just see him look past, and we sort of zoom in on this sort of sepia photo showing a sort of young man and woman, arms around each other, cradling a baby between them, and as his eyes flick back off of that picture towards the captain, we just see that proper like glint of sort of determination in his eyes.
I suppose it'll be a nice point to sort of go back to the Gonsalvo scene.
Yeah, I think Maria will answer the question and say he is keeping you safe. He's keeping all of us safe. And Maria reflects how she and her fellow anarchists will kill the captain and his men.
Does she say that, or does she just think that?
Think that you're too young to be brought into such brutal acts.
So I think that Gonsalvo just stand up abruptly and scream to Maria. He's keeping us safe. He's keeping us prisoner. I hate him. And storm out of the room.
Nice.
So I think at that point, actually, I'm going.
It sounds like
yeah. I think we're into my scene, but I think I'm going to discard. Actually, no, I can use to describe an action. We see Maria going into one of the scullery areas and using a radio to message someone in the woods.
Nice. What do I want to do? I am going to I think I'm just going to get in on that action. We see Honore stands and says, "But as I say, I will treat you as a guest while you are here, Captain." And he walks over to the sideboard and opens up a humidor. And as he's sort of doing that, he just like slides the picture of Gonsalvo's father sort of down behind the sideboard, so it's less obvious. And he pulls out a couple of cigars, and comes back over from his well, actually, he will reach down to his sort of riding boots and pull a short, hunting knife. Not hunting knife, but sort of workman's knife out of his boot and cut the ends off of the cigar, off of the cigars, and offer one to the captain and sheath the knife again and light them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gonsalvo is looking out the window, trying to cool off after the emotional moment, and come to terms with the fact that he probably cares about Honore more than he thinks he does. The weather is just scorching down. It's the middle of the summer heat, and almost nobody stays outside for very long until they have a very good reason to do so.
Cool. And just to double check, this is a discard, isn't it? So I'll just move that down there to.
Oh right, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Just for clarity. Cool.
I think I will also. I won't. I will play an action where the captain, as you've taken the cigar, the captain flicks out a lighter to Honore and takes it to light the cigar and light his, and leans in towards Honore and says, "And exactly how accommodating."
Honore will lean in, and he'll take a drawer on the cigar to light it, and it sort of crackles and burns. He says, "We are both gentlemen, Captain. I am sure I will be able to provide for you adequately."
He smiles knowingly and puffs on the cigar.
Cool.
That was Honore's action, right?
Yes, it was. Yep. So it's background to you.
Very good. So, Gonsalvo comes down into the room, trying to hide his red eyes and his puffy cheeks, and the emotion that's behind them. But that's not necessarily very successful. He says meekly, "Mr. Honore, can we talk?"
I'm going to discard and describe further out in the lands around the Honore's dilapidated castle. Rebels are moving in the undergrowth.
Nice. So, Honore will stand and say, "Forgive me, Captain. This is my young ward. I will take care of him. His welfare is in my hands. You will forgive me." And he will kind of take Gonsalvo by the arm, not in sort of a fairly matter of fact kind of way, and lead him out and away from the captain without sort of acknowledging him any further.
Okay. Honore, Gonsalvo just allows himself to be led, but he looks like a mess. His hands are shaking, and his hair is all scruffy and unkempt. But it's increasingly difficult to find a private place, as wherever the two men go, they either meet soldiers, or there's Maria there, or there's some sort of other undue commotion robbing them of their privacy. That was a discard, by the way.
Mm-hmm. The captain looks at Honore leading Gonsalvo out of the room and jealously decides that this slip of a boy needs to be dealt with.
Nice. That plays nice. I just had all face cards this time. So yeah. As I said, the area they're in is crowded with soldiers, and as they're heading up towards, he's actually going to lead them back towards Gonsalvo's room, and there's sort of a few soldiers already like putting down like bedrolls and stuff in one of the hallways, and his and Honore's voice sort of just barks at them, and he says, "These areas are our private quarters. You will find somewhere else to sleep, even if it is a stable, or I will ensure that you pay for. I will ensure you are punished for your indiscretions." And the soldiers just scarper out of the area.
I would say that even the turret in the west wing has been taken over, as the soldiers have erected a comm station, a large antenna, which not only just is an eyesore, but also constantly transmit messages. So even using the radio just for entertainment is out of question, because all you can pick up is fascist messages. Most of them probably coded or in some sort of cryptic language.
Nice. So I think actually this is the first time this has happened, but yeah. So obviously, Dave, at this point, you have to pass and draw a card, basically. Obviously, because you don't have any in hand, you can't discard. But
have you really have you been forgetting to draw when you discard? Because
no, I think we've just actually been able to play a lot. I think between the pair of us,
high face cards in my drawer.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I'm gonna add that the rebels in the undergrowth pull away some of the loose boarding at one of the older and discarded entrances to the grounds, and are now on the site. And I will draw a card.
I'm also out of cards at this point, so I will also pass. So this will end the scene now. And yeah, I think we just see like a couple of the soldiers are just like pissing into a fountain in the courtyard and laughing. And scene, yeah.
Oh boy, that was a long one.
Cool. So yeah, everyone draws back up, and so yeah, what scene do people? Oh, actually, I will just check in. So obviously, I think I scheduled this to end at past. I don't have to like have a hard stop at that point. Just want to check in if other people are happy to, if people want to aim for us to stop then, or if people are happy to carry on a little longer and let it like play out. Either's good, obviously.
I think I'm probably happy till about midnight. After that, I might turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't go any later than that. Yeah.
I'm unlikely to turn into a pumpkin because I'm a night owl, but I think sort of midnight would be the limit of
that's fine. So
stuff.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So yeah, we'll just let this play out its course. Then I mean, to be honest, like I already feel like this is gonna. It already feels like there's quite a bit of momentum filling up in this one, so I don't think it's gonna be a hugely drawn out one. But
we'll see how many aces are dropped.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's this scene for me is probably going to be considerably less dramatic than the last one. Cool. So yeah, speaking of, what do people fancy doing for this scene? I'm wondering, just because again it's an easy touchstone, we could maybe go for a sort of a meal scene where sort of probably the soldiers and stuff will also be eating at like the big dining table, or we can go for something else if anyone else has a cool idea.
I'm happy with the meals, but probably just the meal is fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Cool.
So Is the meal happening like with the soldiers or separately? I don't know actually how.
I'd say probably maybe with the the officers and NCOs and stuff. Maybe probably not all the enlisted men, but yeah, some of them I think will be sort of sat at table with
okay,
Honore and Gonsalvo.
So the table has been set for 5 people, Gonsalvo and Honore, obviously, but also the commander of the fascists, as well as his 2 junior officers, like a lieutenant and maybe a junior lieutenant of some sort.
Yep.
And there's also another soldier present, the officer's adjutant, who is serving him food and acting as basically a manservant, only in military uniform. Gonsalvo is just looking in his plate and trying to pretend he's not there. He shoots looks towards Honore, and his mind is racing. Is he eating there? Is he in the lion's den? Is everyone at this table trustworthy, or is Honore actually one of his enemies now, and he should fear for his life? That's the kind of questions that he's asking himself.
A good question to ask yourself.
Oh dear.
The captain looks and peers and continues to peer at Gonsalvo and says, "Master Gonsalvo, I can't but help we've met and think we've met before. Did I know your parents, perhaps?"
Can I actually answer that, or?
Not at the minute, and I think I'm going to kind of leap in on that one anyway. And I think Honore is and so you may have done if you spent some time in the capital, but his parents were killed, and his parents were killed by the rabble. Luckily, they were able to bring him to me. Luckily, their people were able to bring him to me, and I will ensure that he remains safe.
Okay.
And he kind of does the sort of, looking straight ahead and just sort of sipping his wine casually as he's sort of talking to the captain.
Gonsalvo continues eating his dinner, clearly distressed, and he's trying to go with the story that Honore has started. It's like, yes, the mob has been that didn't have any mercy, and Master Honore is right. It's just rabble, hateful rabble, and they will pay. They will pay for what they've done. Over to you.
Yeah, I was just thinking what to do. I think The rebels now are closing in on the troops who are barracked outside with the wine they bought and the wine that they've liberated from the cellars. The fascist troops are quite inebriated.
Nice. Yeah, and as they sit in the dining room in a moment of quiet, you can again just hear that sort of burbling of like men laughing and chatting and stuff outside.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, certainly. No, I was just saying. So inside the dining hall, things have kind of quiet, have fallen silent, and we can just hear sort of the sound of men sort of laughing and chatting outside.
Okay, that's right. What is not this time? Gonsalvo takes his half-empty plate and collects another few that have been cleaned of food. And with an awkward nod, he's like, I'm gonna make myself useful. And takes them back to the kitchen or scullery area, as if he was a servant rather than a host.
Nice. So that's scene, I think. That was three discards in a row, rather. So draw back up. Cool. What scene do we fancy next?
I'm thinking sort of a conspiratorial discussion, like late at night.
Sure thing.
A few hours later.
Sorry, we were saying?
A few hours later, I think. Yes, that makes sense.
Unless someone has a better idea.
No, that's
cool.
I
agree.
So maybe it's like it's just like Maria, Gonsalvo, and Honore having like a kind of sitting in sort of maybe in in one of the rooms in sort of the private area, maybe in Honore's like study, having like a kind of glass of brandy and chatting with each other.
Okay, so I'll start with a bold 7 of hearts. Gonsalvo steps into the room carrying his small suitcase. But this time the suitcase seems quite heavy, much heavier than when he brought it in. And he kind of looks left and right just before he opens it slightly ajar to show the contents. It's filled to the brim with stolen pistols, a few grenades, ammunition. And
sorry, you cut out a little bit there. I think I just lost the end of the sentence.
The suitcase is filled with stolen weapons, ammunition, a few grenades.
Cool.
Basically pistols and submachine guns, stuff like that.
Nice.
They didn't notice me or anything. I just had an opportunity, and I'm not sure what to do now. But here you are. As he basically pushes the suitcase over to Honore.
I think I'm going to play a queen with Maria, and I'll be giving this, I think, to Honore, and Maria says, whatever you do, keep Gonsalvo safe. We weren't able to save his parents, but we won't let them get away with it. She looks coldly at Honore.
Sure thing. So I will steal that card. And again, I'm going to say the same as with the aces. It will just carry on playing from that 7 because it just makes it more straightforward. Honore is going to nod and turn to Gonsalvo and say, "You have done a very brave thing, Gonsalvo. I see so much of your father in you, but I do not want you to risk yourself further. I could not bear it if something were to happen to you. Whatever you do, you must keep yourself safe, please, for me, if nothing else."
And Gonsalvo immediately becomes flustered, and all the gumption and charisma is gone, as if by a touch of some magic spell. He takes a step back and shrinks, pulling his head between his shoulders. I didn't mean to be brave. I didn't mean to do anything wrong.
Okay, I'm going to discard and outside the anarchists draw their knives and close in, stabbing brutally the sleeping soldiers and ending the threat of the fascists outside.
And Honore sort of stands up and pulls a couple of pistols from the suitcase, like checks them, cocks them, and slips them into his waistband, and sort of pulls his coat back over them. Says, "You have done nothing wrong, boy, but this fight is not for you. I will deal with these men." And he starts stalking towards the door.
In the distance, the soldiers have been alarmed, but they don't know what's happening yet. Only that there's an attack. So you can hear a beginning of the wailing of a siren. You know, the hand clank one. But it's quickly silenced by someone with a knife. But not just a few seconds later, shots are ringing through the air.
Isn't that 3?
No,
No, you
I
acted,
played on my
right.
last turn, so yeah.
Okay, cool. Then I'm going to discard and say that the noise, even for a minute, so a second or two, was enough to wake the captain in the house, who is now abroad.
Sorry, say again. Who's now what?
The captain is awake
Right.
inside the house.
I'm also going to discard, so which will end the scene. And yeah, I think we see a couple of the soldiers who have been roused and are kind of grabbing their guns, and they look scared and they look young, and to be honest, they don't really look all that different to Gonsalvo. And that will be that scene. I think I'm just going to call a quick 2 minutes here. I'll go and grab another drink because my throat's starting to give out a little bit. And then we'll kick back in. So yeah, see you like 2 minutes or so.
I got cat mugged as soon as I moved out of the room, and they're demanding their evening treats.
Yeah. Cool. So I feel like we're probably going to have some form of dramatic dramatic confrontation scene at this point. Oh, I should probably have cards. That would help. I've been getting all the wrong cards this game.
Yeah. Especially for Gonsalvo, no heart means no success.
Yeah. See, I've been getting all the hearts. I'm just going on an emo rip with Honore. It's
Gonsalvo is just useless otherwise, like a foil. Hard emotions and not much else.
Cool. Yeah, so I think it's the scene will sort of be a general skirmish type of thing, and we can kind of play a bit fast and loose with exactly where people are.
Okay.
Okay. As Honore and perhaps Maria, don't know, maybe, armed and ready, are stalking through the manor to join the fighting on the courtyard and defend themselves from, or at least ensure that no one with bad intentions tries to harm either them or Gonsalvo. Gonsalvo has another bout of bravery. He grabs races past completely recklessly races past Honore and starts shooting at the Nationalists. He has fire in his eyes, and as he picks them off purely by utilizing the surprise and not even being aware that he's flanked or that it's a strategy that he should have thought of. He channels his anger into what he sees as revenge. Bang, bang, bang.
Okay. I think I will play. I'll play that. I think I'm going to play that. Here, Maria also rounds on some of the young boys dressed in the fascist uniforms. One of them puts his hands up, clearly surrendering, and she shoots him squarely between the eyes.
Cold.
Death to fascists.
And I think a couple of the a couple more men sort of come down the corridor towards the sounds of gunfire, not expecting it to be coming from inside the building, sort of thing. And one of the junior lieutenants is there, sort of leading a couple of other men. And as he sees as they round on the party, Honore just sort of coldly regards them and draws the two guns from under his coat and just starts shooting.
Wait. I think there's a problem with
have we got two queens of spades? That's bizarre.
What do I do?
We'll just ignore it as a random random fluke. Yeah, there's obviously
different sleeve.
Yeah, there's obviously some weirdness going on with the cards, but yeah, you know.
Okay. So Gonsalvo jumps into one of the trenches that the soldiers have prepared hastily. It's not much of a cover, but it is cover. But almost immediately, a hail of bullets obliterates his position. Finally realizing that he has indeed put his life on the line, he just cowers in the ditch and praying for help.
no help comes. Overwhelmed and outgunned, the plucky defense is and rebellion is pulled to a conclusion. The rebels and the anarchists are scattered, and you both Honore, Maria, and Gonsalvo are surrounded. The captain looks at Honore and says, "Hospitality leaves much to be desired." Takes out his pistol and shoots Gonsalvo in the chest, killing him stone dead.
Yeah, that's
Right.
you can still kind of have your scenes, but obviously Gonsalvo himself can't really act at this point, but you can still discard.
I can let you have any last words if you like before the firing squad goes off. That would be a better ending.
I'm actually thinking that a wordless demise is more fitting for Gonsalvo this time.
Okay.
If anything, he'd probably be too intimidated and not really, or not even believe that that's how it's going to end.
Yeah. And Honore is going to let out a howl of rage. And the sort of the man that's restraining him, he throws him off, grabs the gun from his belt, charges the captain, who coolly turns around and shoots him in the head, because with a heart I can fail.
I suppose I could say that Gonsalvo is a corpse and is dead, but he looks sad.
But yeah, I think that's probably the end.
Is that how this game is supposed to go?
It's certainly a way it can go. Once you've got all 4 aces out, you can start killing people off. So yeah.
Right.
We went for the much more tragic ending that time.
I'm not entirely sure. I just didn't play Fiasco, but
I mean, yeah, I think the deck was stacked against us a bit that time.
It's a bit weird in that respect. Yeah, the deck. Yeah, interesting.
There weren't many moments of passion this time.
No, we got the I think we all ended up with each other's cards that time round.
And we certainly had a lot of queens.
Yes. But no, that was good fun. And it was kind of cool to have one that was just a bit different there. That second one, that would have been the situation where having Olivier in the game would have been really useful, because he gets to de-escalate the threat, particularly with violence, when he gets a joker. So, but no, thank you very much, both. That was good fun.
That was definitely very interesting. Second one round, it was a completely different game. And
yes, yeah.
Sort of interesting. It's like it almost feels like it could just be if it had been designed today, it would probably just be a really neat 2-player. Or maybe
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you obviously you can play it 2-player, but you can just play with Gonsalvo and Honore, essentially. At which point, I think it will become. I mean, I sort of said, because before you sort of signed up, I said I could have played it just with Travek, but I think it would have been. I can see it being incredibly intense as a 2-player game, because you are just. You're obviously, the odds of you having the cards to escalate things are a lot higher, because it's only the 2 of you drawing the cards. So you're much more likely to get the intimacy ratcheting up faster, or at least you're almost guaranteed that the intimacy will ratchet up a lot more.
Sure.
like the threat is probably going to be a bit more ephemeral. It's going to, I think, will be a lot more focused on just the two characters, which I think it would be interesting to see how that plays out. But like I said, I think it would be quite an intense experience. That one.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
But yeah, no, thank you both for playing. And I was saying, if actually I will find the. I'll stop the broadcast now. So if anyone is watching, thank you for watching.